5, 4, 3. CGP Video Pictures presents Trek Tonight, Season 2. This week, Strange New Worlds. With your hosts, Christopher Pitcher, Leo Byrne-Janicek, and Keith Jacobson. Tonight's review, Those Old Scientists. Now live from New York City, Wilmington, Delaware, and Everett, Washington, it's Trek Tonight. Hey there, bada bing. How are you, Trekkers? Welcome to another episode of Trek Tonight. I'm going to apologize to our audience right up the bat. It is hot as balls, and we are all running our fans and air conditioning tonight. So if you hear a little background hum, that's where that's coming from.
You could just think of it as the hum of the warp drive.
That's exactly right. Yes,
warp core.
We're all in engineering tonight. Yeah. Any rate, just want to. Where is it here, guys? Just want to let you know. Now we're reviewing 2 different episodes tonight in
it's
2 different shows. Yep, it's a double header, but they're actually 2 separate shows. So we're gonna do Those Old Scientists now in our 9 o'clock slot. We're gonna take a 10-minute break in between, and then we're gonna do Cloak of War. Very exciting that we have 2 episodes to review in 1 week, which is pretty cool. But as you know, we're going to be giving you spoilers. So if you haven't, for some reason, seen these 2 episodes, but you just want to look at our pretty faces, that's fine. But you might want to shut us off, go stream the shows on Paramount Plus, and then come back and hear what we have to say. At any rate, how are you guys, besides hot?
Not bad. Keith?
Great here. I am great. I am just.
Keith is as happy as a house cat who's been well fed, and I envy him for that. And maybe resent a little, but that's we won't discuss that too much. But
that's that. You know what, guys? That's how you'll know if we've slipped into the mirror universe. If we get surly Keith one night.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
I feel like crap.
What's not to love? We've got 2. We got not 1, but 2. And it was a freaking surprise. It was a surprise that they dropped TOS on us.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Those Old Scientists on us. I did not know it was on until one of you. I think it was you, Chris.
I did. Yeah. All of a sudden, I texted. I knew it because I was reading an article about San Diego Comic-Con in Variety, which I try to read Variety all the time. And there in the article it said, well, because they aired it at Comic-Con, they're going to drop it early. And then they ended up shifting the whole season a week because they didn't want us to have to wait 2 weeks for Cloak of War. So it was a fun bonus thing.
It was.
Hey, let's see here. We've got Eric Hutz in the audience tonight. Back to Heckle Live.
Thank you, Eric.
That's great. Eric was taking a college course in, I think, beer making or something, and that's why he hadn't been around because his classes would be on when we were on. Angela says, "Woohoo!"
Thank you, Ed.
Yep, good to see you too. Oh, here we go. You knew this was coming. Eric Hutt says, "Can we get Keith to admit he finally saw a time travel episode he liked?"
First off, I have mentioned that there is a time travel show episode that I like on another network and another property.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the time travel element in this one because while it starts out looking like it's the exact kind of time travel episode I hate, I don't think it really is. And you know what? If you're funny about it, that covers up a whole lot. And I am just going to say right now that of all the lighthearted Star Trek episodes ever,
yes,
ever.
Yes.
This was the best lighthearted Star Trek episodes, and dare I say it, don't hate me, but it's better than Trouble with Tribbles.
Yeah, it was really good. Let me just say this one thing so we get it out of the way. The episode, we start on the Cerritos in animation.
Yes.
Boimler is excited because he's going to go look at this ancient portal. The gang of our lower deckers, including Mariner, who ends up heading the team, go down to the planet, and then by taking a picture, it triggers the machine, and Boimler gets flung back to not just the past during the TOS era, but he gets flung back to real life stuff on board the Enterprise with Pike, and then humor ensues.
Yes.
So you were going to say something, Leo. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Just before we start, because of these two episodes, Those Old Scientists and Cloak of War are so vastly different in tone and content. This is the Barbenheimer of Star Trek. Because Barbie and Oppenheimer came out, two very different films. One very sort of lighthearted, and I haven't seen either, but a much more lighthearted film. And then Oppenheimer, which is a very serious film. Cloak of War, very serious episode, which we will discuss in an hour or so.
Yep.
This one, very lighthearted. So I wanted to say that before anybody else did. If anybody else had occurred to them, it is
Barbenheimer. I love it.
Yeah.
You heard it here. You heard it here first, folks.
Listen, Barbenheimer. I wish I could. Barbenheimer. I wish I could take credit for it. It's been on the internet since the movies came out, because and they both did extreme. It is a thing. It's on T-shirts and everything now.
I was going to give you a Genesec gem for that, but
I would. It's the Star Trek version of that. So, but this was much like, I would say, Lower Decks has kind of always been a love letter to Star Trek, because the characters of Lower Decks are huge Star Trek fans,
right?
And seeing them interact with their heroes is very much like I would imagine a lot of Star Trek fans might do, although we're not as well trained as Boimler or Mariner, and that might be arguably they don't strictly adhere to sort of time travel protocols, as as we find out over the course of the episode. So
one of my favorite lines, because of the contrast between the two shows, Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks, is it Boimler or is it Mariner that says, "Everybody talks so slow here"?
Yeah.
I just want to say right off the bat, this show got several out loud guffaws from me. Boimler gets a cartoon Boimler gets shot through the portal at the beginning of the show.
Right.
He lands in front of Una and the crew of the Enterprise in full live action, played by Jack Quaid.
Yes.
Yes, Jack
played
Quaid.
by Jack Quaid with his hair all done up and purple makeup.
Yeah.
He lands on the ground on the ground in front of them. He looks up at them, and he's like, oh, he's about to pass out, and he goes, "Wow, you're so real."
Yeah, so realistic. So realistic. Yeah, I thought that was great.
And then we get the opening credits. Ricker. And then we get the opening credits, and the opening credits are anime. They went shot for shot for the opening credits that we see in the live action of Strange New Worlds.
Yep.
It's now animated. In fact, I saw somewhere a YouTube video where they did a side-by-side comparison of the two at the same time, and it was fantastic. In some ways, you could see the ship better in the animated version than you can in the official Strange New Worlds Open. But there's this scene where you see the Enterprise going across from left to right, and they got the same space slug sucking on the nacelle.
Yes.
That they do on the Cerritos in their opening credits, and I just went, "Ah!"
Yeah, I know. I laughed out loud at that, Keith. I really did.
perfect. It was
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, and it was funny though because I don't know why, but I didn't understand the koala bear thing at the end in the constellation until Leo explained it to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, I sort of remember that. I don't know why the koala joke went right over my head in the first season.
I did not see the koala until my second viewing of it.
Yeah.
This is an episode that deserves 2 or 3 or 4 rewatches because it is dense. It is dense with the with
Easter eggs.
Easter eggs. Thank you. Easter eggs.
Yes. Eric Hutt says that the secret weapon behind this episode, I think he means episode, was the facial expressions on the Enterprise crew reacting to the Boimler Mariner chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And
yeah,
when Mariner does show up sort of midway through the episode and they're having a conference and they're, Mariner and Boimler are going back and forth and you're like, well, it could have been worse. We could have ended up like in early 21st century San Francisco during a riot. And they were like, I believe it was either Una or Laan says their references are awfully specific.
Yes,
I've noticed that, because they are Star Trek fans.
Right.
But they do. And the Riker thing that Angela shouted out, there's a scene where Jack Quaid is in that sort of conference room, like office space off the bridge, and he sees Pike's saddle and he says, well, it can't hurt anything to just touch it. And he sort of, he gets on it, and he's very tall, Jack Quaid. He's a tall drink of water, as they used to say.
Yeah.
And he gets on to the saddle, sort of Riker style, and just goes, Riker! Riker, yeah. Apparently that was an improvisation, of course.
That's what I heard, yeah.
Jonathan Frakes directed this episode.
Yeah.
And apparently...
right there.
The other improvisation that I read about was Mariner going on and be like, I was unprepared by how hot young Spock is. Was apparently another improvisation.
Yeah.
So which I thought was great, and she's like, hot Spock agrees with me.
Hot Spock, yeah. I loved it. I loved the idea that when they made her a real person in 3D, that she's got her sleeves are rolled up and stuff.
Yeah.
Apparently, I saw in the interview on Ready Room, they really aren't rolled up sleeves; they're just a cuff.
Yeah.
But to make it look like they were rolled up. But there was just so much good stuff in it, and it was like you say, it was a delight. It was so funny. Hey, Craig Lubin is dropping in. Hey guys, sorry I'm late. Don't worry about it, Craig. I don't know what the hell they put in this drink.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an Orion Hurricane.
Yeah.
I actually discovered a recipe for it with a photo of live action Mariner on it. So that I love the bar scene where she mixes up the drinks and Ortega says, like, "You're a good bad influence." And Uhura's like they're trying because Uhura's trying to decipher the sort of the glyphs on this portal and she can't make any sense of it. Right. And they're like, you need to go out and have a drink. You need to relax. You need to take a break. And, she's still like working under the bar and they're like, stop it. And she's like, but Ortega says, like, oh, that looks like somebody was trying to sell me a Domjot table, which Mariner describes as it's sort of like a billiards table that Nausicaans are terrible at playing at,
right?
But love to bet on for some reason.
Right. Yeah.
But then she's, it's an ancient form of Nausicaan. But Uhura downs her drink like in one shot, and in a moment that seems like I don't want to say it's. They do a lot of improv, but that kind of like she definitely sells it as a very like Mariner was like, oh, you might not want to. Oh, okay, because she did just this is a drink you need to sip, not shoot. And she was just like yoink. I did love it. I loved. There was a lot of wonderful. I have to say everybody sort of came to the plate in terms of their comedy in this episode, which was nice to see. there was a lot of cool stuff. That Orion ship that we see is based on the Orion ship in the revamped Journey to Babel episode,
Right.
with those sort of little globes at the end of sort of struts,
Right.
which I thought was neat. There was just so much. There's so much. I could go on forever. Keith or Chris, what else? What bits did you sort of delight in?
So shall we get the whole time travel thing out of the way now? Because Eric did bring it up.
Yes. Okay.
So for those who don't know, I have a problem with time travel stories. As a rule, I can't stand them.
Right.
I don't want to go into the whole. It's the whole paradox problem. If time. If you go back in time, you can't change history, because even before you've gone back in time, since, let's say you're in the year 2020, you're in the year 2275, whatever, in the 329, you can't go back to the year 2000 to change something that happened in the year 2000, because whatever you've done in the year 2000, you've already done even before you've left, because 2000's already happened.
Right.
That's essentially the heart of my argument right there. And I'm sorry, Craig, don't give me this alternate reality new timeline bullshit. I'm not buying any of that. I'm not buying that. Anyway, but and so it seems like that's kind of what's in play here, because these guys go back in time. They're all worried about the temporal prime directive, about not changing anything, but if we notice, nothing actually got changed. All that happened is they participated in the events in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and they were funny doing it, which actually lets them forgive.
Oh yeah. You know what? For some reason this week, I completely spaced on trying to get images for the show from the episode, but I have this one, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
I just think it's great. There's Quaid. There's Frakes, and then you've got Spock and Mabenga in it, and it's just so funny.
Who's that blurry person? There's somebody moving in the background who's blurry.
Yeah, it looks like my ex-wife. No, I think it was probably just taken on the set while they're doing something, setting something up, and that's probably just somebody on the crew in the background. But yeah, I just think it's such a fun picture. This was also in Variety. I think it might have been the article that alerted me to the Saturday airing. But anyway.
Wait, put that picture back up, because it just,
made me
think of something. It just made me think of something. Look at how tall Quaid is.
Oh yeah,
huge. Yeah.
He's, and what's the name? The person who plays Beckett.
Oh, Tawny Newsome.
Tawny.
Yeah.
So Newsome is also frickin' tall.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and yet, if you watch, matter of fact, let's take a look here. They don't look all that tall in this, and when we see them up against people like, say, Shax,
right,
or Ransom in there, Shax and Ransom are taller than these guys. So they must be giants.
They are, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it is funny because they were both tall. Because the episode the week before, when you saw Pelia standing in front of Una, who and Una sort of towered over her in that shot.
Yeah.
But Ensign Mariner is about the same height as Una. I mean, they're both tall actresses.
Yeah.
I don't think they're, it's not it is difficult to translate somebody, who's been animated as a character. It is fortunate that they actually kind of look like their characters.
Yes.
Right.
So like H. John Benjamin doesn't look anything like Sterling Archer. So that might be like doing that might be a little difficult, doing that kind of transition. But I'm willing to hand wave that bit. But there's so many wonderful moments. I loved Uhura in Chapel giving him the business in the bar.
Oh, that was so funny. Yeah, so you're not throwing up? Yeah.
Plus the idea that it's like he said, oh, it's Pike's birthday. They were like, oh, if you're still around Friday, you should come to movie night. And he's, oh, you're doing so, is that for Pike's birthday? He's like, it's Pike's birthday. And he's like, well, yeah, it's a holiday. And my, oh, damn it. You know, he just keeps like, I mean, most of these things are sort of inconsequential. And even when he says, like, you know, when he's talking to Lan, who's basically saying, listen, I'm going to give you some advice about all the stuff you need to do.
Yeah.
Worf's
honor.
He goes, damn it. And of course, it really doesn't mean anything if you do outside of context.
No.
You know, it's probably just sounds like gibberish, but of course, again, you know, it is just another example of like these tiny little mistakes.
Right, we've got some comments stacked up
Sure.
here. I want to bring them in.
All right,
I'm going to do them in order they came in. Craig Lubin says, in a meeting in my company's New York office, I sat down in a conference room chair like Commander Riker while saying Riker. Hilarity ensued.
Wait. You didn't say it right. Do that again. Put it up again. Put that quote up again.
What do you mean?
The quote you just had. I'm going to read the quote the way it should have been said. In a meeting in my company's New York office, I sat down in a conference room chair like Commander Riker while saying, Riker!
Okay.
Hilarity ensued. You got to hit that Riker hard.
Okay.
Riker.
All right. Well, you know what? I don't know what this is in reference to, but it's appropriate now. Wow, I agree with Keith. Okay,
Time travel.
so,
Time travel.
Yeah,
Angela and I have been arguing about time travel for a while now.
Craig Lubin says Keith Jacobson is correct. Star Trek follows the Back to the Future time travel model.
People are starting to agree with me.
Yeah, and one more, Eric Hutz, and I would too, Eric. Eric says, I would love to see the blooper reels from this show.
Oh, yeah.
That would be worth buying the season on Blu-ray just for that alone.
I find in an age where everything is digital, nothing has any physical. You know, I'm still a physical media sort of guy.
Right.
You know, which means I'm old. But I like the thing is. Well, here's the thing. Like they're on DVD. They're not Blu-ray. I haven't bought the Blu-ray of Enterprise. But for all 4 seasons of Enterprise, Enterprise is currently unavailable streaming, or season 4, I should say,
really?
which is arguably the best season of Enterprise.
Right.
Although I did enjoy that show. I'm not saying it was perfect, but I think it gets a lot of it's. I think because
unnecessary shade. Yeah.
Unnecessary shade. Perhaps because of the theme song, which is not my favorite opening, but you know, it is.
You know, I actually like the concept of the opening.
Yeah,
showing the advancement of humanity going out into space. I thought that was a cool idea.
Yeah,
you know, because that's what the show was about. It was about the beginning of Star Trek.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind that. I didn't mind the song that much. It was all right.
It's okay. I mean, it's like, you know, it because it did something different. You know, everybody's like freaked the fuck out, which is sort of the way fandom works. I'm like, this is slightly different. I'm very uncomfortable with this.
Yeah, it's the Discovery Klingons of theme songs.
Yeah. So, but there were so many great moments in this, like. You know, the revelation that Boimler has a poster of number 1, and she's like, "Are you saying like a pinup poster?" She's like, "Well, it's a poster that's pinned up." And she's like, "You know what? I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Don't want to know." So, you know,
but it was actually a really sweet moment when you find out what the poster is.
Yeah,
you know, and I mean that was actually very sweet. So
it was.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the payoff is it's a recruitment poster, and it has that ad astra per
It had her quote in it. Yep.
Yeah, you know, through the stars, to the stars through hardship, and she's like really touched. She's like, well, this is a clear violation of temporal protocols, but you know, she like gives him a wink, and you know, you're like, which was very sweet. And we've also haven't addressed is Boimler's freaking out over Spock exploring his emotions. Especially when Spock goes into the bar, he sees Christine Chapel, and he has this weird, creepy grin.
Yeah,
that he gives her.
That's the grin of nightmares. Good.
Yeah.
God, that's frightening.
But I love that Boimler thought that it was his fault.
Yeah.
Yes.
that it was like a butterfly effect thing or something.
Yeah.
That he'd screwed up Spock, and he's all worried because Spock's gonna have all sorts of amazing, really important things to do.
Yeah, I also like that fact because he makes them laugh when they're down on the planet.
Yeah,
and he's like, and Megan says, "Is that new?" Or he was like, "No, it's new."
No, it's not.
But it's also a nice moment with Christine Chapel when she sort of it dawns on her, which is something I'm sure she knew but probably didn't want to think about, is that he was probably not going to stay being the way he is now forever.
Yeah, right.
And it's heartbreaking for her.
Yeah.
At that moment, where it sort of sinks in that things are going to change.
Right.
Right. But
it's kind of a nice nod to canon in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, we're getting to see this, which we never knew and never saw.
Yeah.
But don't worry, we're going to get Spock back the way he was, and that which is okay. I think that was kind of nice. I'm trying to think now because I got so blown away by Cloak of War that I said before we went on air, I'm like, I hope I remember what I wanted to say.
Well, also let's talk about they're trying to figure out there's enough of this heronium to send you back,
right?
And then the Orions show up, and also let's mention that Tendi said her grandmother was one of the people who discovered this portal. It was discovered by Orions, and Boimler's like, "What were there? Like Orions?"
Tendi.
Yeah. He was very dismissive. It's like, were any Orions even doing science back then? She's like, somebody had to build the ships.
Yeah.
So the Orions are like, well, yeah, and they beam up the portal and then just fuck off. And they're like, especially because Boimler's encouraging Pike I know that this is not a hostile ship. These guys aren't pirates, even though there's pirate activity in the sector. And then they steal the thing and just fuck off. And he just looks at him, and they're like, Spock says, "Well, like if I had more time, I could like force a solution to this, but we don't have enough time." And Boimler says, "We can't track him." He says, "Well, I think I can." And he says, "And there's well, you've interfered enough." He says, "Well, how about if you just don't look?" Yeah. And Una just laughs. She's like, "What do you see? How can we just not look? Can we do that?" And they do it. They turn their backs. The whole bridge crew turns their back, and Boimler's like plugging in a whole bunch of different cables underneath Spock's station, and it's a little tangled up. And it was sort of like it was a very cool moment.
You had your hand up there, Keith. Did you have something?
I was just going to say, that was just fantastic. That moment there, you can just not look.
Yeah.
We can't just not look. Can we?
Yeah.
He says yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But
and I thought the relationship between Mariner and Uhura was very cool, and I think it was cool that she maybe was a little influential in Uhura sort of learning to get her head out of a book and that she was going to go on to do interesting things and exciting things, and I think that was kind of cool.
I like the scene where they're sitting there and Uhura's like got all these books open and she's poring over stuff, and Banner's just sitting there like just staring at her.
Yeah.
And Uhura is getting, and justly so, a little creeped out. She's going, well, I mean, I'm 23 years old.
22.
22. I'm 22 years old. I haven't done anything yet.
And also, she's like, well, you need to take breaks. Well, I'm not really about breaks. She's like, yeah, I'm getting that. And then she's like, Starfleet regulation XYZ means that Starfleet personnel have to take meal breaks at regular intervals. And she's like, Starfleet regulations? She's like, oh yeah, so many of them are useful for goofing off.
Yeah.
So that's where they go to the bar, which is still yet to be given a name. I'm not sure it will be, because it's sort of hard to come up with something other than 10 Forward. But that's where she mixes her the drink,
12 I don't know. I'm just.
I don't know. I think we'll just call it the bar for now.
Yeah.
Sure.
But and the design of that place is great. It's very much this new Enterprise very much feels like a modernized sort of mid-century,
Yes.
aesthetic. It
Which I
has that.
love. I
Yeah,
love that because
This is
so much of the furniture that they morphed into trying to make it look futuristic
yeah,
for the original show was mid-century furniture.
yeah.
So I think that's great. I love that.
everything on this show and from a design perspective, I think is amazing.
Mhm.
I just can't. Yes, we're enjoying this episode, and this, like I say, I think if all we're talking about is lighthearted episodes, this is the best lighthearted episode in all of Star Trek.
It's great, but they also managed to have like I said, the
Yes.
moment with Chapel, but there's
Right.
also a moment like where they Mariner and Boimler said, "Listen, I feel bad. We're going to be stuck here." So because they also to get the portal back, and Boimler's about to go through when Mariner comes through, and they're stuck there. Sort of midway through the episode, and
Right.
there's no more of the heronium to power this thing. Um, and they had traded all this quadritriticale to the Orions
To get the portal
to
back.
get the portal back. And I think it's the settlers on Setlik 2. Is this grain is genetically engineered for that planet? Like really can't grow it anywhere else.
Right.
So he's like, well, listen, we'll trade it back, and we'll just go live off the grid. Although Mariner says, I can't live off the grid. I thrive on the grid.
I need the grid.
I need the grid. So and they go into a shuttlecraft. They're like, oh, it's great. And Mariner's like, this is great. She's like, oh, sneaky boys. And you're like, it's great. I never get caught. And then they get caught like immediately after she says, I never get caught. They're caught, which is perfect comic timing.
Oh yeah.
And Pike is talking with her. He's like, listen, I'm just going to drop you off at Starbase 1, and you become their problem.
Right.
And they're discussing his birthday. He says, Mr. Boimler, I understand you've been encouraging people to throw me a surprise party, but I wish you wouldn't. And you find out that he had a bad relationship with his own dad, and that he was going to go ice fishing and bring a bottle of whiskey and sort of like talk it out, presumably to himself, because his dad would not be there, of course. This is the first year that he's older than his dad was before he died.
Right.
So it's really come home to him.
Right.
And Boimler, because we also find out they find out that he knows, like the beep cheap chair and everything. He knows about his future. And Boimler points out, says, well, just think about all your crew members who wish they had one more time to talk to you.
Right.
Which
there was some really sweet moments in it that it wasn't all just slapstick silliness, but there were
again those moments where you talk about the fact that Pike is going to end up in the beep chair, and that they decide that they're going to trade for the quadritriticale, and then they're going to trade again to get it back because they're nothing they've done is making the thing work. So so now we need to get it back because all those colonists need this quadritriticale, and so there was just enough serious moments to punctuate the comedy.
And I like the final solution because we're at 34 minutes in, but I like the final solution, which was the idea that, and it was dropped early in the show, so it was established that heronium was used originally to build the original Enterprise, and that there's this tradition of carrying something forward, some component forward from one ship named after the other. So there is a chunk in engineering, and you get that little bit with Pele where she's like, "What are you doing to my floor? I need to walk on that." But they find this component.
To walk on this too.
Yeah, they find the component that is made of that substance, so they're able to power up the thing and send them back.
Yeah, and also they, much like what you said was dropped earlier, is they're talking to these Orions who are sitting there on the, at the portal, and they say, listen, Pike says, listen, if you let us use it, I think this is something that was discovered by Orions. Basically, we give you all the credit for its discovery.
Right. Right.
And the guy's like, that's all I've ever wanted, the Orion captain. And we
Yeah.
also find out, he mentions, like, well, a friend of mine, I'm for the future, and a friend of mine, she's a science officer, she's in Starfleet. Her name is Tendi, and, she told me that you guys found it. And she says, oh, and he says, she's also known as mistress of the northern constellations, or the winter constellations. And he's like, whoa, I have a so-and-so Tendi on my ship. Yeah, that's her grandmother.
Right.
And he said, how do you know that? And Mara's like, because we're time travelers. I feel like he's not listening.
Yeah, right. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh. And some of the other comments they made, like the fact that is I don't know if meta is the right word for this, but they're always poking fun at the whole genre of Star Trek, and they're even poking fun at their own show, because it's like at one point, Boimler and Mariner are talking to each other, and someone, I forget if, I think it was Mariner, points out, do you notice how quiet and slowly everyone here
Right.
speaks?
Yeah, I said that at the top of the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a great line.
It was.
And again, because Lower Decks is so bum. It's so fast paced. I also noticed, actually, no, I'm taking credit for somebody else. My wife Gina noticed that when Boimler is ready to go back through the portal, it's almost exactly at the mid mark of the episode, which is where he's saying goodbye to them, and he's going to go through, and of course Mariner comes through, but he's standing there, and it's goodbye, and he's all that stuff, and it's the same length as a Lower Decks episode would be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
and again, when Mariner comes through the portal, Boimler had his moment of going, oh, everyone's so realistic. And Mariner gets her moment where go, whoa, hey guys, where's Uhura? No, seriously, where's Uhura? I mean, you guys are great. Yeah. You guys are great now, but where's Uhura?
Yeah.
He wants to know where Uhura is too.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm trying to think now of oh man. There were so many great moments, but I'm trying to think of something else. Now it's been like a week. I'm not used to not having seen the show the night before, or the day of. When we
I rewatched it the other day because before I realized that we're going to get a brand new episode again today.
Right.
There was just a lot of wonderful moments. Also, let's talk a little bit about the fact that we find out. We're sort of like, they do get back, in case people were wondering. They're not.
Oh, hey! Before you go there, Andy McCann is here. Gave us a thumbs up.
Hey, thank you, Andy.
Andy.
My good pal, Andy McCann.
Yep. I'm sorry.
Is you find out that Mariner volunteered for this mission because Ransom is like, hey, I was going to send some cadets, but she put him a big stink, because she knew Boimler wanted to see the portal, so she pulled some strings. Even though she's like, oh, it's so boring, and we also finally get to see the poster of Una Chin Riley, as in the recruitment. It's funny because it's not in this bunk, it's not like on the ceiling, but it's in those little drawers they slide out on the side.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we will see that going forward. I mean, they don't usually linger.
Yeah, I know. I love it when also oh my gosh, his name went out of my head, but
Ransom?
Tendi
Rutherford.
In the beginning, they're all excited about the different kinds of radiation.
Yeah.
And Mariner says, the bar for excitement for you guys is really low.
Yes. The radiation is a super useful form of energy. He's just like, Yeah, they're both like super into science. Because Henny has been training as a science officer now. Yeah, there were so many great moments, and also,
Oh right, yeah.
yeah,
Greg Lehman says, don't forget the Section 31 power walk that Ensign Boimler.
oh yeah, we got Boimler screams a whole bunch of times.
Boiler screen.
Oh, well, there's a moment where he's catching up with Mariner, and he's
Yeah,
literally running
yeah,
like Boimler. I mean, it was great. And Quaid was talking about how he really tried to bring into the live action some of the ways that the character
yeah,
is animated,
yeah.
so that it would be consistent, which is cool.
It was great, and he's like when he first wakes up and he's like, he says, "You're Captain Christopher Pike." He's like, "Yeah," because he's in sick bay. And he goes, "Computer and program,"
Yeah.
you know, which is great because if he didn't,
And
you'd
they
be
all
like,
look
"What?"
at him like, what's he talking about?
And he just pokes Pike. He's, "Yeah," But
Mhm.
they're trying to manufacture uranium. He and Spock, and
Oh, that
Spock,
was a great scene.
a great scene, and also Spock is basically saying like, "Well, you upset Christine, as I don't know what you said to her, but Bowers says I'm whatever happens, I'm going to continue living the way I'm living right now,"
Right.
um, and they're because replicating technology is not what it is in the 24th century, late 24th century. They have to sort of try to figure this out, and they have this
Right.
big centrifuge, and they're pouring a bunch of chemicals into tubes
I
and
love the
containers.
goggles.
Yeah, they put on the goggles
Goggles
and
were great.
they had the
Yeah, the big
aprons,
aprons. Yeah.
and he goes, "Do you feel lucky?" He's like, "No, like
Yeah.
never." Uh, and the whole thing sort of goes sideways. We get another Boimler scream. He screams when Chapel and Ortega's like, tap him on the shoulder in the bar.
Yeah.
He,
Oh, here's a bit that I'm remembering now that I loved, and that is when Una and Pike are walking down the corridor right after they've met Boimler,
yeah,
and they said, we've analyzed his badge, and it's also a communicator that you tap. And Pike's like, but flipping it open is the best part.
Yeah.
She's
yeah,
like, yeah, I know. I like our communicators better too.
yeah.
That was great.
Now it's been I read somewhere, and it's not untrue. Is they did have those tap badges in Discovery? It was the Section 31 guys had them, if
Uh,
you recall. So he's seen it, but of course he is sworn to secrecy of anything that went on via Discovery. So I think Pike's poker face is pretty good.
yeah.
But I love that he was like, "Yeah, the best part is flipping it open."
Yeah.
So so many wonderful moments in it. I do love. I did love seeing these actors, Tony Newsom and Jack Quaid, being able to portray these characters in live action, which is a dicey move. It's a or I would say a risky move because,
Yes.
again, sometimes voice actors look nothing like their characters. They do look quite a bit like the characters they play.
Oh my
Close
god!
enough for
I was watching a really neat guy on YouTube who's got a show, sort of like ours, and he talks about music. And he's
Yeah.
Doctor somebody, I forget who he is, but he showed an ad, I think from 1984, where Boy George, it was a Boy George crossover on the A Team, where Boy George ends up as a guest star on the A Team. And I'm thinking, now there's an example of a crossover that sounds really stupid.
Well,
So, yeah,
to
you're
be
right. It
fair,
could have gone south. It could have gone completely bizarro, and it didn't.
but they did an excellent job. And again, spoiling sort of the tag of this after our heroes get back to the Cerritos and everything's okay, is we see Pike's birthday party, but it's animated lower deck style.
Right.
And we find out the captain, the Orion captain. Let me check because I wrote down the name of this stuff they gave him. It's Orion Delac, which is the secret ingredient in Orion
those
Hurricanes.
drinks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're all drinking it, and they're like, all of a sudden, they were like, I suddenly feel weirdly two dimensional. And like Ortega's like, my eyes really big? I feel like my eyes are really big. He like taps and it's like clink clink, like you were tapping on a glass.
Yeah.
And Spock's like, my arm doesn't normally move like this.
Yeah.
And they realize that this liquor has a hallucinogenic effect. And then there's like, and Benga goes, "What's in this?"
Yeah.
Which, by the way, when Mariner is first making that drink for them in the bar, she says, "Well, we didn't have any of the Delac, so I had to substitute it," which is because that will ruin your life.
Right? Yeah.
Well, now, so let me ask you this: is it your understanding, guys, that there will also be a Stranger Worlds crossover in Lower Decks?
Or I think this is it.
Okay.
If they do another crossover, I'm sort of torn because this was so perfect. It's kind of hard, to sort of like lightning rarely strikes twice. However, if they had a really excellent script, we'll see. It's funny because in the Lower Decks trailer, Mariner says to Boimler, like, it's like that Pike thing that we're not supposed to talk about. Right. Obviously a reference to this. I don't know if they're going to do a crossover. They've not said anything about that.
Well, and it's not unusual. It's not unusual for Lower Decks to have guest appearances from characters like Tom Paris.
Right.
So, which is completely out of the timeline. So
I think I'm the one who started that rumor in and amongst this group. I feel like like a few years ago, I feel like I did read or say something that this was supposed to be a two-way crossover.
Right.
First, Lower Decks is going to cross over into Strange New Worlds, and then Strange New Worlds is going to cross over into Lower Decks. That said, I haven't seen it anywhere since, and I feel like if that was going to happen, I would have.
Yeah, I agree.
Although they might have just really kept a tight lid on it.
Yeah.
Who
knows? We'll find out.
It's funny because in the age of the internet, a part of it is I'm glad because it's like you get to find out about stuff that you wouldn't necessarily know about.
Right.
And also meet people who share your interests that live, in other parts of the country, much like, us meeting Keith through a mutual friend of ours. And Keith lives on the West Coast, and, in a pre-internet day, we probably never would have met, much to or the detriment of our existence.
And quite frankly, we wouldn't be doing this show.
Well, that too. Yeah. We'd be doing a fanzine. Stapled by hand. Anyway.
Which we'd be trying to get people to buy at cons.
Yeah. Oh, yes. But at any rate, it's tricky because I think this was easily like a perfect episode. There was nothing in there that I thought didn't work. I thought everything worked. I do like a break in the tone of the show. Last week, the previous week's episode was a fairly serious episode. Not necessarily super grim, but like high stakes. And there was, it was a very serious episode. This was a wonderful sort of, like when you get a little bit of sherbet in between courses at a when you're going to have a nice meal.
Yeah.
As a kid, that was my favorite part, was getting a little bit of sherbet in the middle of the meal. Yeah. Because I could eat sherbet all day. Anyway,
now, are we really? Wait a minute. We got just about 10 minutes left in this episode, and then I hope everybody hangs in there because we have another episode coming right after this one. But are they really doing a musical episode?
Yes,
they are. They are.
So looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it too because I mean it's funny. I'm not a huge musical fan by it's not like a musical is an automatic like thumbs up for me.
Right.
Because there's some musicals I think are great and others I'm like, now it's time for a song, so let's do a song. But Celia Rose Gooding I know has a Broadway musical theater background, and I'm fairly sure a lot of the other actors have had experience doing musicals. So I'll be curious to see how they do this, and
I told my mom that, and she thought I was just busting on her.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
So-
no, I think they're doing that, Mom.
They're really doing it, and I'm looking forward to it. Blame Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because
Yeah.
Buffy the Vampire did Once More with Feeling, and it is one of the best episodes of the entire run of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
And
I'm
I think
pretty sure that Supernatural did a musical too. I'm not sure.
There's a lot of fans. Once the show's been off for a while, people want a musical episode. They did it also with the Flash and Supergirl, because both of those leads came from Glee.
Right.
Both of them are terrific singers and love singing. So
Yeah.
But Once More with Feeling was such a big hit that a lot of shows started doing it.
Yes.
And none of them were really ever as good as Once More with Feeling. Because if you have not seen the episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Once More with Feeling, you really need to watch it. It is an amazing episode.
Oh yeah,
The Magicians did some great musical episodes.
they do. They've done musical episodes. Usually one episode a season. Maybe starting in the second season. I don't remember that they did in the first.
Right.
But they do. We'll do a musical episode.
The songs in Once More with Feeling were excellent. But more than that, rather than just having people breaking into song for no reason, there actually was a plot to it, and they managed to move the meta plot for the season along with Once More with Feeling. So really, watch Once More with Feeling. It's fantastic.
Yeah, Craig Lubin reminds us of the title, Subspace
Rhapsody, the musical. Yes.
Yeah.
And the online poster. I'm not sure if that's what you call it, but the online poster looks like a classic musical poster.
Right. Yeah, like an old school Hollywood. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sort of slightly faded sepia, not sepia, but like the way those old posters, the colors tend to be kind of like muted. Somewhat.
Yeah.
And Uhura, who we know the actress has a musical background. Uhura is very prominent in that poster, so I'm thinking she's going to get a lot of songs.
Yeah,
well, in that little trailer they put out, you see a fair bit of her in it, so that's cool.
Listen, if you've got you've got Derek Jeter, you don't keep him on the bench. She is. I'm sure she'll be a home run. There was a little scene they showed on Ready Room, a little preview.
I haven't seen this week's yet. Yeah,
which is it sort of shows the beginning, because Spock and Uhura are trying to figure out how to increase subspace range for it's like because she's like, imagine instead of waiting weeks for a reply, you could talk across vast distances, like almost in real time. Right. And Pelias suggests they try sending music because of harmonic frequencies, because they haven't been able to get it to work. And Uhura's like, well, let's see if they like the Great American Songbook. And she plays a little bit of Anything Goes. And so I'm not sure how that is going to result in the whole thing becoming a musical extravaganza.
Well, it's a neat setup for it. That's great.
So I'm looking forward to it. Saber apparently has some opinions, but unfortunately, none of us speak cat.
Yeah. Thank you, Saber. I appreciate it. Any last thoughts on this episode? We got another hour to do after this, so
yes. Oh my god.
I may cut us out a minute or two early for a bio break and stuff, and then we'll come back in 10 after 10. But any last thoughts on it? I mean, it was so much fun, and I really enjoyed it. And we enjoyed it so much. I ended up showing it to my daughter Penny, my 4-year-old, who of course loves the animation at the beginning.
Yeah.
And she now talks about the Portal episode.
Okay, yes.
That's what she calls it. Oh, that's the Portal episode. Yeah.
Molly Young. Does she watch Lower Decks?
I haven't really sat her down to watch Lower Decks. I tried with my kids to get them to watch Prodigy, and it didn't latch on. It didn't latch on for any of them.
Well, to be fair, it took a while for Prodigy to latch on to me.
Yeah, I know it did. Yeah.
I hated Doll at the very beginning of that, but he grew on me over the course of the season.
Yeah, yeah.
I would agree.
I think the fast pace and the bright colors, and just how much energy Lower Decks has, really appeals almost more to a child in a way than the other show did. But I don't know.
It's interesting. This is just I'll say this before we go. When we were all kids, we wanted to see adventures, like adults having adventures. Like we go to the
Right.
movies, and there is at a certain point it's shifted where kids wanted to see kids having adventures. And not that I didn't enjoy a movie where kids had adventures, because those existed too, but it feels like there's not a lot of. I wonder if kids enjoy watching something where adults are maybe like, well, when I grow up, I can have adventures.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's how I know what you're saying, Leo, and that's how I looked at it. You know, if I had a choice between watching Star Trek with kids in it and Star Trek with adults, Captain Kirk and stuff, I think I would have much more skewed towards Captain Kirk, because that's was an exciting role model to live up to.
I don't know. You see, I'm not even sure if it's kids who decide that is. I just think it's corporate people had decided that that's what kids like.
Well, I think Steven Spielberg has a lot to answer for with that too, because he made, think of things like E.T. and stuff, where the children were the focus of the story, and there was a great adventure.
I'm not saying it can't be done, but if I was playing, because let's face it, I've been role playing my entire life, whether or not there were rules or not in the game. I pretended to be Kirk. I pretended to be the Flash. I pretended to be James West from the Wild Wild West TV show. I pretended to be Speed Racer. I've done all of that things. And if I were given a choice between playing Superman or Superboy, I would always pick Superman.
Sure.
I pretended to be Kirk so much as a kid. I had read the making of Star Trek once as a kid, and I completely misunderstood this one line. I thought it was real. It was as I recall, Nimoy was playing a joke on somebody in the show. And he was telling someone else in the show that the Vulcan nerve pinch is real, and he nerve pinches somebody, and somebody collapses. And I'm thinking, that completely went over my head what was going on. What I read when I read that was the Vulcan nerve pinch was real. That's what I read. That's what I read.
Yeah.
So, who gets in trouble for trying to Vulcan nerve pinch his sister in real life?
Yeah.
Just saying.
There you go.
It's
I mean, listen. My friend, my best friend at the time, was a kid who his name was Chris too, but he went by the nickname Cricket. We played Star Trek, and we played James Bond. And then we had our giant GI Joes we played with, and our corgi cars. That was part of how we played James Bond, because we all had all the cars that were made to be from the movies, and then we'd reenact chase scenes and stuff. But yeah, no, we wanted to be the adults.
Yeah, same here.
So
same
yeah.
Anyway,
and obviously, I never
grew out of it.
Obviously.
Well, okay, all right. One last comment on that, because even as adults, we are tabletop role play gamers.
Yes.
And basically, what is that? But it's
pretend with rules and math rocks.
Exactly. Yeah. It's pretend like we were when we were kids, but you have rules and dice.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Less running around.
Yeah, less running around. That's
more sitting in snacks.
Only occasional costumes.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
I think that's
it. It is 50. It's almost time to roll out of here. I'm gonna. Oh, wait a minute. Craig thought that was very funny. He goes, "Who hasn't tried to Vulcan nerve pinch a sibling?" Yeah, exactly.
I seriously thought it was real, though. I think
that might resonate with Craig quite a bit these days. Anyway, at any rate, guys, I would normally be saying live long and prosper and have a great week, but we're going to be right back in
It's
like
a
10
double
minutes.
header. You're
Yeah.
getting 2 shows for the price of 1.
2 shows for the price of 1. So stay up late with us here at Trek Tonight. This is Trek Tonight After Hours, and maybe we'll be a little bawdier. Probably not, because this next episode is pretty serious.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it won't be a chuckle like it normally is. But at any rate, I'm going to roll us out of here for this episode, and we will see you shortly. Guys, got to take a break. Go grab a drink, and we'll be right back.